So, 9 o'clock today, update 22.0 has been announced that they will be adding Portal Mage talents and Vampire talents and a new mystery units. And we will gradually reveal all the cards, so in subsequent news you will find details of the upcoming change. That day is today, you ladies and gentlemen. That day, that day is today. This is for everybody obsessed with watching YouTube videos on your computer. No, I'm not going to change my format back. This is just going to be me talking. Most of my videos are just me talking. But pick up a phone. I trust that you have a phone. Pick up a phone, and if you really want to, like, look at my video right side up, all you have to do is pick up a phone, open your YouTube app, if you have a YouTube app on your smartphone, and full screen the thing, and then lock screen your phone if you have to lock screen it, and you will get a full screen version, and both of us can be happy. But if you continuously try to watch watch YouTube videos only on your computer, I'm sorry. You'll just have to suffer through me talking at very, very long length about different things. But that's what this video is, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be me talking about every single talent that's going to happen. And the new unit, Riding Hood, having no relation to Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood. It is just Riding Hood. I think it's just Riding Hood. Or Red Riding Hood. Riding Hood. She is riding the hood of a car. That's the unit that that's what they meant. It has no relation to Little Red Riding Hood. Just Riding Hood. But anyway, so Vampire is, I love Hungry Swarm. I called it. I love that I called it. That it's gonna summon bats, because it has to. It has to summon bats. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Neighboring Empowerment. So all of these talents that you're gonna watch me, see me scroll through, I just took screenshots. Momo Royale has a video. Go support his channel. He posted this today. He posted this hours later than when they announced the entire, we're doing update 22.0. He posted every single update. It was just every single talent, and the new unit and all of its talents and gameplay. And I don't understand. I'm just going to rant about this for a second, because that's what this video is. This update doesn't even come out until the 23rd, October 23rd. And so it's end of the month, right? A couple of weeks. And part of the excitement of an update being announced is the lead up to that update. Getting information over the course of time. Because then, one thing gets, they release something, and then 3 days later they release something else, and then you're excited again, and then 3 days later they release something else, and then you're excited again, right? Really, the only thing that people really care about in any update ever are talents and balance changes. And balance changes have kind of been, released. In the sense that we know how much something is going to get nerfed or buffed. And then the only other thing that we're really excited for is talents. And this video is going to cover every single one of the talents. And if you want to see the gameplay, again, check out Momo Royale. I'm not going to do gameplay video. I just kind of want to talk about talents, because that's what I do here. I just like talking at great length about things. But yeah, I feel like the fact that this got leaked, and I don't want to say leaked, because the only way he got all of the video footage is because Rush Royale wanted him to get the video footage. He's one of the creators that gets developer builds, or he gets sent videos in order to post them. And so if Rush Royale didn't want these videos to be out there, they wouldn't have released them. And I don't know if that was, I don't know. I guess they're just trying a new strategy. Like, oh, hey, maybe if we let people see all the stuff ahead of time, maybe they'll be more excited, as opposed to if we just dropped it, like a couple days before. I don't know. It's just, it's weird to have this already, because now, from now until the 23rd, there's not really new content that we can make. Because now this information is already out there. So as opposed to getting like a mid-month bump of like new content and being like super excited for this update, we're getting it now. And for the next 22 days, nothing. But here it is. Here we are. Neighboring Empowerment and Blood Rage are basically the same kind of talent. It's the first talent is always the thing that changes a unit. In terms of like what it can now do. Think like Inquisitor becoming a Light Inquisitor or Dark Inquisitor, or a Blade Dancer becoming a Floral Frenzy Blade Dancer, Blooming Dash Blade Dancer. This one is how a vampire becomes empowered. How a unit. I'm sorry, not vampire itself, how one of your units becomes empowered. So for Neighboring Empowerment, the vampire can now bite any unit of the same merge rank or lower when bitten. So it bites your unit, transforming it into a vampire. Look at that flavor. When bitten, the target unit becomes empowered for 15 seconds, increasing the damage to monsters bitten by 15% for every rank of the vampire that bit it. Increasing its damage to monsters bitten by... I swear, Russian wording. When bitten, the target unit becomes empowered for 15 seconds, increasing its damage to monsters bitten by the original vampire by 15% for every rank of the vampire that bit it. By 15% for every rank of the vampire that bit it. So for 15 seconds, when your vampire bites a unit of its rank or less, damage to the monster bitten, you get better damage against monsters. And that's based on the rank. I'm assuming 15% it's like 15% for every rank of the vampire that bit it. So 15% at rank 1, 30% at rank 2, 45% at rank 3. I'm not going to do math all the way up, but that's the damage boost. After 2 bitings, the vampire cannot bite unit for 20 seconds. With rank increase, the time decreases by 1 second. Decreases by 1 second. So it cannot bite units for 20 seconds. So assuming that you have a rank 7, it cannot bite units for 13 seconds. I don't know if that sounds good. I guess like the damage boost that you're getting is pretty good. I don't know. It feels so complicated. The vampire cannot bite units for 20 seconds. After 2 biting, I'm assuming the biting of your own units, because that would be weird if it stopped biting enemy units, so that you would stop. It would just stop doing things. But I guess after 2 units that it bites, it has a cooldown, so that it doesn't just continuously bite every single one of your units, and then every single one of your units become empowered. And that, and like, I guess it's also not good because most of your units are support units. So if it doesn't bite like a damage unit, like let's say you're running this with Inquisitor. It's a terrible example. But like, let's say you're running this with like Dark Inquisitor, right? And it bites a Scrapper, and then it bites a Night Statue. And and then it can't bite anything for 13 seconds. Like, let's say you have a level 7, and then it comes off a cooldown, and then it bites a Dryad. Because the only thing that's gaining that damage boost is the bitten empowered unit. I don't think it's good. Yeah. Blood Rage is a little bit different. It's the opposite one. The target, but this one, the target unit loses a merge rank. And then the vampire itself becomes empowered. The vampire can now bite any unit of the same merge rank or lower. When bitten, the target unit loses a merge. They've already lost me on like the target unit loses a merge rank, because you also have no choice. You have no choice of this. Like, it just does, and it just bites any unit, and that unit goes down. And then your vampire becomes empowered for 22 seconds. When it starts attacking the first target, the unit damage and attack speed increases by 300%, and the unit has a 50% chance of dealing area damage. It doesn't seem good. Increasing your vampire so that it's now I guess they're trying to create vampire DPS, because that's exactly what that would be. If you just keep downranking your board, I don't see how this is good, especially if you have like multiple vampires on the field and they just start eating your entire board. Like, do they eat each other as well? Like, if you only have vampires on the field, are they going to bite each other and then become empowered? Because that would also be silly. I don't know. I don't know about either of these. Also, like, the unit damage and attack speed increased by 300% sounds good, but I don't know if you've ever played Vampire. It doesn't have the greatest damage. And it having a chance to deal area damage, I think, like, when it said that it bites your own units and then your own units down rank, that just seems really bad and uncontrollable. Unless it doesn't bite other vampires, I think it might be okay. If it has a mechanic, like a secret mechanic that it doesn't bite other vampires, and by secret mechanic, I mean, like, you know how Scrapper never hits other Scrappers? Or Enchant Sword doesn't give the Enchant Sword bonus to other Enchant Swords, assuming that you're not using the DPS sword. Unless it has like a secret mechanic where it can't bite other vampires, maybe it's kind of okay. Like, it's like a bad Light Inquisitor. But even then, I don't know. I don't think that Vampire has enough attack damage in order for you to use it as an attacking unit. But this is them trying. Poisonous Bite. The Vampire's damage becomes poison damage. All bitten monsters take poison damage, increased by 15%. That seems interesting. But I do like Blood Bond a little bit more. The armor of bitten monsters decreased by 10% and by another 10% for each empowered unit, but cannot be decreased more than 50%. I think decreasing armor and using this for what it's intended, which is a support unit, I think that that's better. Obviously, Poisonous Bite is probably what you would use for Blood Rage, but I think that the Neighboring Empowerment Blood Bond is much better. Because you're still able to use it as a support unit. Hungry Swarm. I was so excited when I read this. When biting a unit, the vampire has a 40% chance of releasing a flock of bats that fly all over monsters, dealing 100% of the vampire's damage and draining 10% of mana from the cost of the bitten monsters. This is something that, you would use with Blood Rage. You would probably go Blood Rage, Poisonous Bite, Hungry Swarm. Because it deals 100% of the vampire's damage, and then with Blood Rage, if you have 300% damage, and then it does 100% of that, I think that sounds really good. I don't know if it's really good, but it sounds really good. Unbearable Thirst. When biting a unit, the vampire has a 50% chance of sending a bat to an opponent's unit, infecting it with vampirism for 15 seconds. This is really interesting. So when you bite units, you have a 50% chance of cursing your opponent And so for 15 seconds, the player dealing the effect steals 30% mana from each monster killed by the infected unit. I mean, again, like Neighboring Empowerment, you could potentially target something that's useless. Like, you could potentially target the Night Statue or the Dryad. And so, good job. Whenever that kills a thing, you get mana. When the effect expires, there's a 20% chance of transmitting the effect to a random unit. So it could just keep bouncing back and forth on their field, which is good. I think it makes it a little bit better, but it's the idea that mana... The problem with Vampire is that mana isn't really a problem. It feels like... It seems like a card that would be really good for somebody new. For somebody starting the game, and that's exactly what it is. Commons, epics, and rares, what they are really good cards if you're just starting the game, and this is like a really good way of getting mana. It deals damage. You can run it as a damage dealer, or you can gain mana, and it gives you a lot of different ways of obtaining mana. But as you progress through the game and your DPS unit strength just becomes much better, things like Cauldron and Vampire start to fall off because you don't need mana. Because you're dealing so much damage that you just go later into the game to where you don't require mana early game. Because you just have so much mana over the course of the game. Because your DPS unit has the ability to you could run one, for example, you could run one level 1 Inquisitor for a pretty long time, on the board. And you don't need to do anything with it. When you start the game, you can't run one engineer on the field and just win the first 3 rounds, for example. Like, you have to keep summoning in and doing stuff and upgrading your board. And that's when mana, matters, because you obtaining more mana in a shorter period of time, allows you to feel, as though somebody who is not using a mana unit feels when they have progressed over the course of a game, to when they would have obtained that amount of mana, if that makes sense. The final max talent is this is a developer build, where they just have infinite everything. Look at those numbers. Becoming a Lord. Once every 20 seconds, a random vampire will become a Lord. When a unit is bitten, the Lord raises a white from a graveyard on the opponent's side. The white has increased armor and speeds up neighboring monsters by 25%. Once the white is summoned, the vampire loses its Lord status. In co-op mode, the white appears at the beginning of the path and slows down the monsters. I think that's interesting. It's like a poor man's Frost, where you're increasing monsters on your opponent's side. I think that's obviously the most useful talent to late game players. Summoning a thing on their side every 20 seconds and increasing the speed of their monsters can potentially theoretically win you the game if they're losing to the wave. I like the idea of summoning things on the opponent's side just in general. I love Demonologist. I love Golem. I love Hunter when it sends the boars. I love Reaper when it sends ghosts. I like the idea of overwhelming your opponent with so many creatures that they die. And this is just another unit that does it. And then it pretty efficiently obtains you mana as well. But this is a maxed out vampire. I think it'll be fun. I don't think it'll be good. I'm really interested to see if you build the Blood Rage, Poisonous Bite, Hungry Swarm, Lord Vampire. If you try to build the DPS vampire, if it's good, or how good is it? Blood Rage, I'm really interested to see if it eats your own vampires, because if it eats your own vampires, it's considerably worse. But if it doesn't, I think it's kind of okay. I think you can build a deck where you're just powering up your own vampires, and even though you're just eating everything that summons in, I think that's kind of interesting. But I mean, like, obviously with Blood Rage, the target unit loses a merge rank and the vampire becomes empowered for 22 seconds. When it starts attacking the first target, the unit damage... So the vampire can now bite any unit of the same merge rank or lower. When bitten, the target unit loses a merge rank. If you have too many vampires on your field and it just starts eating everything... because even a level 2 will now eat level 2s and level 1s, right? So that everything you summon in will just automatically get eaten. I think you could run into a problem, especially if vampires eat themselves. Because you could literally not be able, or I mean, like, I guess you can outpace it for a little while. I suppose if you have like a level 2 vampire and it just keeps eating everything that's a level 1 or below, I don't know. Like if you have like a level 4 vampire and then you have like a level 3 vampire, if it starts eating the level 3 vampire and it just eats it away to nothing, that would be really bad. If you had 2 level 4 vampires, then you couldn't really... Like, it would be really hard to get to level 1 of them up, because you'd have to level 1 up and then hope it doesn't bite the level 4 vampire and have it bite anything else. I don't know. Like, the interaction on this is going to be interesting. I'm really excited to see whether or not it eats other vampires. If it doesn't eat other vampires, if it doesn't have the ability to merge rank down other vampires, I think it might be okay. But if it does, it's really bad. Because then your whole field is just going to get eaten. And it'll become really bad. Anyway. So Riding Hood is a new unit. And it has different... so it's kind of like a Scrapper and Flicker in that it just eats units on your field. It's a way to get rid of units on your field. So whereas Scrapper levels up your units, this transforms into a werewolf. So it starts as the girl, obviously, and then you have werewolf abilities. So the way that it works is it doesn't merge with other things. It eats other things and becomes a werewolf. So in that way, it's kind of like a Flicker. I'm not even lying. It's a legendary unit. I'm not even joking. Like, I feel like this would be really good in Bloom and Dash Blade Dancer, because one of the problems in that deck is just getting stuck. It's getting stuck because you have too many units that you can't do anything with. I wanted to run... You can't run Scrapper to get rid of units, because then it upgrades your units. And with Bloom and Dash Blade Dancer, like, you want all your units to be the same. With Flicker, the problem with Flicker is that, one, it takes up your hero spot, at which point... because it's taking up your hero spot, you're not able to use Gadget, or you're not able to use Necromancer or Zeus or something that, you know, could benefit Bloom and Dash Blade Dancer. But this unit, it eats things of any merge rank, and it then becomes a werewolf, and you basically empower Riding Hood. So here we go. We're going to go into the talents. Wolf's Nature. With a 25% chance, instead of a common Riding Hood, a Suspicious Hood will appear on the field. This Suspicious Hood brings 50% more mana damage of all werewolves, increased by 3% for each merge rank of color, #, FF7. This is the developer build, of all Suspicious Hoods on the field. So this is like the idea of, like, they always have to have, like, a cool version, like a Crystalmancer with a crystal on it, a meteor with an orb around it, a demonologist with an orb around it. There always has to be like a cool a rogue that could be a shinobi, right? So with a 25% chance, you could theoretically get a suspicious hood, which is obviously just the better one, at which point you use that one to eat all of the other ones. This hood brings 50% more mana damage, for 50% more mana, and then damage of all werewolves increases by 3%, for each merge rank. I think that's pretty good. Alpha Hunter, the absorption counters become global, increasing damage by 2.5% to 30, and by 0.75 after that. New abilities are obtained at 1, 5, 15, and 25 absorptions. However, werewolf form is temporary now and only lasts 40 seconds after absorbing upon. I think this is the one that most people will use. It's really good. And this is what I meant when I said that whenever you eat a unit, it becomes a werewolf. So essentially, this makes it a robot. So the absorption counter becoming global means that it works like Blooming Dash Blade Dancer. You have constant stacks all the time. Your stacks are increased by 2, or each stack that you get every time you eat a thing. You're getting 2.5% up to 30 stacks, and then 0.75% after that. If it's too good, they're going to change those numbers. New abilities are obtained at 1, 5, 15, and 25 absorptions. And then werewolf form is temporary now, and it lasts only 40 seconds after absorbing upon. So basically, whenever you eat something, it sounds like it's bad. Like they're like, oh, it's only temporary for 40 seconds. 40 seconds is a really long time. 1, 40 seconds is a really long time. 2, getting new abilities at 1, 5, 15, and 25, it's crazy. I saw the gameplay on this, and when it became a werewolf and started attacking much faster, it was crazy. And this is a level 9 ability. I don't know. Like, I think the idea that this has the ability to eat units that you don't care about, become a werewolf, attack really fast, and then it will always stay the same rank. Because with Scrapper, you could use Scrapper, but it was increasing your ranks. With this staying the same rank, I think this is a really good, like, Blooming Dash Blade Dancer, like, companion piece. I don't know if it's necessarily better than having just a Night Statue and making your Blade Dancer damage better, but I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting as a support card. As a support damage dealing card. Terrifying Roar. I'm sorry, Wound Licking. Absorbing has a 30% chance to clear the pawn of negative effects. 30% is not a lot, but in a pinch, if you're trying to focus one werewolf, you could just keep eating things and eventually it will clear debuffs. It's not good, but I mean, if it's really suffering from something that's really bad, like a Dark Priest effect, and you have not a lot of other ways to get rid of negative effects, like let's say you've accidentally merged it to a 7 or something, and you don't have you're not running Mermaid, and you have a Portal Keeper, and you can just kind of eat stuff and then get rid of it. I mean, that becomes like a gambling thing, which seems kind of bad, but it's something. Terrifying Roar. Transforming into a werewolf or an enhanced werewolf on 5C will stun a pawn in the same tile on the opponent's side. Does not work in co-op and single mode. I think that's interesting. I think that being able to target stun something, it doesn't say for how long. Maybe it's 5 seconds. Maybe that's what 5C is. Transforming into a werewolf or an enhanced werewolf on 5C will stun pawn in the same tile on the opponent's side. I'm guessing that means 5 seconds. Like maybe obviously this is developer build. They're gonna change all these. They're gonna change the wording and the names and whatnot. I think that means 5 seconds, and a 5-second targeted stun at a specific time sounds good. Again, I'm thinking about Blooming Dash Blade Dancer, and if you could like eat a unit on, I mean, it's not good for everything. I think it's better than wound licking. I think that there's better ways to cleanse things other than to eat units. But being able to target stun, I don't think, you know what? I don't think either of these abilities are good. I think this is one of those cases where I think that level 9 is really good. Level 11 is whatever. And level 13, 15 are like where it's at. So let's talk about those. Suppression. Riding Hood in werewolf form reduces the damage of opponent's units by 3%. As the number of werewolves increase, the effectiveness of damage reduction decreases down to 2% per unit. In co-op, increase the damage of an ally's unit doesn't work in single modes. Decreasing their damage by 3% by the number of werewolves, and then the effectiveness of damage reduction decreases down to 2% per unit. I don't even think 3% is a large number. Like, what is 3%? Like, if their attack dealt 100 damage, decreasing that damage by 3% is 3 points of damage. Like, is that... And like, the only way to get... I guess with Wolf's Nature... No, because the only time you can transfer into a wolf is if you eat a thing. I was gonna say maybe if you were able to summon in wolves, but you don't summon in wolves. You always summon in Riding Hoods, and whenever she eats a thing, that's when Riding Hood becomes a wolf. So you're not even summoning in wolves. You're just You would have to eat so many things in order for their damage to decrease to any reasonable amount. I don't think it's good. Scarecrow is Riding Hood terrifies enemies around her, reducing their armor by 5% and another 5% per each rank merge. I think obviously this is the better one. Reducing armor by 5% per merge rank just passively seems really good. There's no activation on this. It's just wherever... I want to say it's kind of like it sounds like a Banshee kind of ability. Like there's just kind of like an area around her. 5% for each merge rank. So the 5 times 7 is 35%. Like just a passive 35% all the time if you had it at rank 7. I mean, I think reasonably like rank 4, rank 5, you could easily obtain. Is this unit starting to sound worse and worse as I talk about it? Gift for Grandma. When Riding Hood appears on the field, she will feed a pie to a random werewolf. With a 50% chance, increasing the crit damage chance by 5%. The effect does not stack. I think this is good, but I also think that, 1, you have to have a werewolf on the field, and then 2, you have to magically summon in, or Harley Quinn, a Riding Hood in order to get a 5% crit chance. This also doesn't seem that great. I hope these numbers change. I liked the gameplay aspect. When I was watching the video, I loved the gameplay aspect of it, but these damage or these percentage numbers are just not jumping off the page for me. Like a 5% crit chance increase, crit chance, not crit damage. There's a difference. Crit chance is the thing that you want, to be higher, because that is what will give you a better chance to critical damage. And And that's why the crit chance number is always much lower than a crit damage. They'll usually say like plus 150% crit damage increase. But they'll usually say like 2% crit chance increase. A plus 5% crit chance to a random werewolf, it sounds really good. But that also means that you have to have eaten something with your current Riding Hood that's on the field. Then you have to summon in another Riding Hood and then hope that you don't have another werewolf on the field in order to get that. It's weird because, like, Terrifying Roar wants you to have multiple werewolves on the field, but the max ability wants you to only have the one werewolf that's really powerful on the field. I don't know. Like, I think the percentage damage, the percent numbers are not jumping off the page for me, but this might be another example of something that doesn't sound well on paper, but in practice, like, it's really good. I remember just watching the gameplay of it and I thought it was really good. So I don't know. It just seems like one of those units that, you know, like, we'll have to play with, to see if it's good. And if that weren't enough, Portal Mage. I think that Portal Mage might be, like I theorized in my last video, I think that Portal Mage might actually be a reasonable support unit now. Portal Warp has a 30% chance when teleported, when you teleport teleport a monster and send it to, when teleport, my God, Russia, get it together, Russia. You have a 30% chance of when you portal keep one of your, when were to portal keep one of your monsters, that you actually, instead of sending it to the back of your row, you send it over to them. So you have a 30% chance of sending them units. The player receives mana for killing the monster, but the opponent does not. So when you portal keep one of your monsters, you portal keep it to their side, but you get the mana. It does not work on bosses or mini bosses because that would be insanity and everybody would use it. My God. Lowers the defense of the teleported monster by 40% in co-op and single player modes. Hard landing. Instead of standard area damage, all teleported monsters except for bosses and mini-bosses now deal damage within range equal to 2% of the teleported monster's current health. I don't even understand what I just read. Instead of standard area damage, teleported monsters deal damage within range equal to 2% of the teleported monster's current health. I don't even know what they're talking about with area damage. Portal Mage doesn't have area damage. I have no idea what this talent means. I think this should show you that I didn't read this one ahead of time, because I have no idea what this talent means. Like, part of me thinks that it's saying that when you Portal Mage a thing, it now deals 2% of the teleported monster's current health. I don't know. Or it deals damage equal to 2% of its health but no, it doesn't deal damage. I have no idea what this talent means. I think this is so poorly worded that I have no idea what this talent means. I'm just gonna move on. I can't like stay on this for too much longer. Is this still going? Yeah, it is. Through Time. This is the one that I was really excited about. All teleported monsters rapidly age after the teleport. Their defense decreases by 40% and their speed decreases by 30%. So when you portal mage a thing, including bosses, their defense decreases by 40% and their speed decreases by 30%. Warped monsters on the opponent's side become younger. Their defense increases by 40% and their speed increases by 30%. So both when you're portal maging your own monsters to the back, they're decreasing their defense and their speed. And when you send things to them, it increases their defense and increases their speed. I think this is a really good talent. Like the distribution bond would have to be like really, really good for you to not use through time all the time. When merging the portal mage, you've already lost me. I don't like merging things if I don't have to. I think that the reason why Harlequin and Dryad are so good and so dominant is because you're taking this random merge game and you're making it to where you don't need to merge things and you can just increase the rank of one thing. Whenever you have to merge something out, you better have like an amazing meteor-like effect. Because if you merge something out, you always have a chance to get something worse. So even with them just saying when merging the portal mage, I already don't like it because that means you always have to have 2 portal mages and you always have to have a 3rd portal mage that you're increasing the damage of. And then you're increasing your ranks of. When merging the portal mage, all teleported monsters fall into the portal net. 5% of all damage dealt to monsters in the net will be teleported to other connected I don't like any of this. There's no part of this that I like. Teleported or warped monsters will give 20% more mana. That's fine. But like I was saying with Vampire, mana doesn't matter. Vulnerability. Teleported monsters take 20% more critical damage. Critical damage will be 20% less for warped monsters on the opponent's side. Again, this is amazing. I think that through time and vulnerability in combination with each other give you a really good, budget-friendly version of a trapper. That's what this feels like. It feels like the budget-friendly version of a trapper. That's slightly better in the idea that it sends up monsters to your opponent's side. But the fact that you can increase your... You're doing 20% more critical damage, and they're getting lower defense, and they're getting slowed. I think all of this is amazing. And then Portal Healer. When a boss or mini-boss is teleported, a Portal Healer is summoned to the opponent's side, who restores 2.5% of max health to monsters within a small radius every 3 seconds. When he dies, the Portal Healer restores 25% of lost health to monsters, only works in PvP. So it basically works like the thing that's in dungeons, where it travels on the opponent's side, and when it dies, it heals your opponent's monsters. And by heals, it means it gives all of your monsters more... it gives all of your... it gives more health to all of the surrounding monsters. So when a boss or mini-boss is teleported... it restores 2.5% of max health to monsters within a small radius every 3 seconds. I think that it can potentially be like a game ender. I don't think that you'll even see a difference if your opponent is just immediately killing everything. If they're not killing everything during a wave, this could get really gross. I think that it's just another additional thing that it can do. This is also assuming that you're not immediately killing a boss or a mini-boss, and either of those things are bad. Because this assumes that you can't kill a boss or mini-boss immediately with your damage units and you're portal keepering it, you're portal maging it. And if you're portal maging it before you're killing it immediately, I think that's also a detriment to you as well. So I don't even necessarily know if this is like the best thing, but I already really like the other talents. I really think vulnerability is really good. I think through time is really good. And I think that portal warp is really good. Sending it to your, I think that's what you run. I think you run portal warp, through time, vulnerability, and it becomes like a budget trapper. I think for anybody who doesn't have a trapper, I think that's a really good version of a trapper. And I think that more people will now use this card. I'm definitely gonna test it when it comes out, and I'm really excited to test it to see how much of a, quote unquote trapper it is. Because obviously with trapper's obviously better because it's affecting every monster. This only affects the monsters that it decides to portal mage, because you have to portal mage the monster in order for you to get the through time, the vulnerability, and the portal warp effects. But I do think that it's good. I don't know. We'll see. I think that Riding Hood is incredibly interesting, but I think that we're just gonna have to see how it does in game. Based on, because the percent damage increases don't seem amazing. Like a 5% crit chance is good, but that's at max. The 3% reduction to opponent damage doesn't seem great. Even if you had a lot of werewolves, which would also be very difficult because you'd have to eat so many units in order for you to get any kind of reasonable like defense or attack down. I think it's an interesting unit. The 30% chance to clear the pawn of negative effects is a way for it to clear negative effects. But again, you have to eat stuff for it in order to even get that chance. And 70% of the time it won't work, which seems bad if you're just like constantly eating everything. I think that Alpha Hunter is is what you would use it for. I think it can be really strong, but I also don't know if your goal is to just build the one werewolf or to build like a bunch of werewolves, because building a bunch of werewolves seems incredibly difficult, because to keep them werewolves, which is a strong 40 seconds, but to keep them werewolves, you have to keep eating stuff. And even though mana isn't necessarily an issue, it can become an issue. And if you can only deal damage in werewolf form, and that's the only time that it's good, at a certain point, that's going to drop off. It's kind of like Monk. The reason why Monk drops off is because it becomes only good when you have the ability to activate the ability. And if you can only activate werewolves by summoning in and eating something, that might become a problem, mana-wise. But I don't know. I guess we'll see.